Welcome back, one and all, to Scramble Drill. I am Josh Johnson, and over there is Mr. Ben Watts, looking grainy as usual. Did your light working this week? Are we going to see your face?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's working this week. My cord was missing because I had to use it during the power outage for my portable charger, so I forgot to bring it back over here, and the light died.
It was so funny because when I was editing the episode last week,
You saw it die.
well, yes, but we could hear you speak. We just could not see you talk. So it was just like a silhouette of Ben, and then the Julio Jones jersey in the background. There was just getting like the halo treatment.
I died and was resurrected as Julio Jones.
Yeah, it was immaculate. The vibes were incredible.
It was awesome. I'd be fine with that. Like, I'm
time.
just gonna put up a screensaver. You're not gonna see my face. I'm just gonna have Julio in his jersey right there.
Yeah,
I'm hiding Stephon Diggs' Minnesota Vikings jersey. Y'all can't see that one.
Well, that's all you got to do. Week 5 has come and gone. We're recapping all of the things on this episode. We're also going to talk about a couple of our Dynasty teams because I think, well, I'll ask you this. Has Dynasty eclipsed redraft as the best and only way to play fantasy football at this point?
It's my favorite way. I will play redraft. I prefer best ball if I'm going to do it. I'll do it. It's just not as fun as Dynasty to me. It's just not.
No, well, I was actually thinking about this earlier today because I knew I was going to ask you this question. With redraft, there is obviously some skill involved. Obviously, knowing who to pick in whatever rounds in your drafts, there's an element of skill to that. But really, more than anything with redraft, it's dumb luck. It's, did you happen to draft the one guy that nobody thought was going to be really good who ended up being really good? And that is how you win in redraft.
Did you hit Kamara in the 6th round? There you go.
Exactly. Whereas in Dynasty, it is a year-over-year thing. Can you build a lineup that is going to compete in your leagues year over year? And that is much less of a luck thing and more of a skill thing.
Sit there and perfectly craft just the absolute dream team, and it's so much fun.
I feel like there is so much more, I don't know, it's just so much better to win a Dynasty championship, in my opinion, than it is a redraft one. Because in a redraft one, it's like, yeah, I mean, I picked up the one waiver wire wonder. I bid more than my league mates on him, and, you know,
and that
I hit
can happen
one
in
really
Dynasty
good
too.
8th-round pick.
There's some guys that
you're
like, why was he on waivers? Like, but
there's always somebody.
There's much less rare, much more rare.
So we're going to look at our Dynasty teams and do a little pulse check after 5 weeks of fantasy football because things have changed in the granddaddy of them all, in the log leagues. So it's a fun time to do a little pulse check. But before we do all the Dynasty pulse checks, we do have to go through what happened on Sunday. I guess the one piece of news that we do have here that is not results oriented is that we did get some news on Rashee Rice, and we do know that he's going to miss the rest of the season. Not an ACL,
Shocking.
but it is an LCL injury, and he'll be out the rest of the year.
I hate to say I'm not shocked by this. After we saw Patrick Mahomes run and explode Rashee Rice's knee, he's going to miss the year. They were trying to be optimistic. They were like, he's getting a second opinion. We'll see what's going on. Maybe he can. No. We all saw the injury. It ain't happening.
Yeah, it was bad. I think anybody with a brain, well, we were all shocked when it wasn't an ACL because it was so obviously something like that. And it was an LCL, but still.
Some CL is gone.
Something ain't right. At the end of the day, something wrong there. The other thing that I didn't put in the show doc, but the other piece of news that I think is very noteworthy is there is now a trend of reporting, and you got to take it with a grain of salt because it feels like every 8 hours something has changed in this situation. There's a trend in reporting where people that are credible, like Adam Schefter, are starting to put things out about Christian McCaffrey that would lead you to believe he could be suited up and ready to play by week 7, week 8, which is kind of a departure from even like 4 or 5 days ago when it was who knows when he's going to be back. So they're encouraged about his status over there in San Francisco.
I'm still kind of treating it like he's going to miss the season. I don't know if he will miss the season. I'm not a doctor, obviously. But like there are so many unknowns and so many rumors about this. Like I am playing it cautious, and it's not if I'm a Jordan Mason owner. If I'm a Christian McCaffrey owner, I'm going to go ahead and just count that he's out, and then if he comes back, great.
When we talk about our dynasty teams, we can get into this a bit more, but I did make a move that was kind of counting on him being out, just in case, trying to cover all your bases. But we can get into that later. It is, and
there's another piece of news that I forgot to put in here too. And it's, if you paid attention to Sports World, it's not like you kind of expected. Devontae Adams looking hard about getting traded. Figured we should at least mention that.
Yeah, I didn't know what to say about it on the Starts of the Week episode because I talked about it briefly, but like, it's one of those things where it seems surprising and yet so obvious because you knew that it was a little messy over there. They're not all that good, and he wants to win. But at the same time, it is sort of surprising that it happened this quickly and unraveled this badly, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, in every year I feel like there's always the rumors of this guy's going to get traded right before the deadline. You get all this hype, and then nothing ever happens. Like, remember when Jonathan Taylor requested a trade, and they're like, oh, it's going to happen by this date. Obviously never happened. This one I think is going to happen. There's way too much smoke, and he's been way too mad. And the fact that they've already like put out there what they want basically for him, I think he's definitely gone.
Yeah, he's getting moved. I would be very, very shocked if he doesn't get moved by like Tuesday. Honestly, by end of day tomorrow. This will go out on a Tuesday. If by the end of the October 8th, I would be pretty surprised if he's not out of there.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate, I guess, when, because I genuinely don't know. But before the trade deadline, he's gone. He will not be a Raider for maybe a week or two more. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of these games here. So Thursday night, we got a masterpiece.
Dude. This was a good. This is like the weeks that football fans dream of. We've had some weird weeks, but man, this one delivered.
There were some high-scoring, high-flying games, and we got started on a Thursday night with just a masterpiece. Kirk Cousins throws for 500 yards. Was it 5 touchdowns?
No, I don't think he threw 5 touchdowns. I think he had 3.
Okay.
I think he had 3. I don't have that in front of me.
Maybe I was getting ahead of my skis there, but it was 4 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns.
Did you Drake
know
London
that
was excellent?
Justin Herbert doesn't have 500 yards on the season, and neither do the entire Patriots passing offense?
Oh, God. I didn't need to know that.
It hurt me when I found out. Not so much about the Patriots. I don't care about that. But it did hurt me to know that Kirk Cousins just had 500 yards in the game, and Herbert doesn't have that all season.
That is awful. And they've played, 3 games?
4 games. Now, he did leave one early. He did get hurt. But it still hurt my feelings.
Yeah, well, the pass catchers were awesome. Kyle Pitts showed up. Drake London
Pitts
showed
was
up.
alive. He was alive.
Yeah. He had a pulse.
I finally
when
benched
you traded
him
to replace him.
I finally benched him, and he goes and gets 15 points. You're welcome to everyone else who started Kyle Pitts. I did that for you.
Tight ends are so gross, man. So it's good he's got a pulse, I guess. I'll be honest, I'm not counting on it continuing.
Absolutely not.
going forward, I have no confidence.
I mean, if Kirk's going to throw for 500 yards every game, then yeah. I'll count on him getting 75 a week.
Yeah. Ugh. But so you got all these players that were great. Darnell Mooney was awesome. Darnell Mooney. Kadarrell Hodge had the game-winning touchdown. Drake London had 150 yards. But Bijan Robinson was yet again not dominant for fantasy football. At a certain point, Ben, at a certain point, there's a pattern. It's not really just a trend anymore. It's a pattern. He is not dominant. And it begs the question, what do you do with Bijan Robinson?
If you look at the final score of the game and the stat line that Kirk and everybody put up, and you can definitely tell Arthur Smith's gone. But if you look at if you just look at what Bijan's doing, you would think Arthur Smith is back. It doesn't make sense. I don't understand the fact that you've got. Did Tyler Algier get more rushes than he did? Is that
not this week? No, he
last week he did
6. Last week, yes. This week he had 6 attempts. Bijan did have 12, so he doubled him up, but still, it was only 12.
Only 12, and he didn't have he had 3 catches, but that doesn't really cover up for a lack of. He's just not a workhorse. I don't know what it is, and I get it to a certain extent. Like, it was a shootout. You had some obviously Kirk was slinging it. Drake London was dominating. Darnell Mooney was dominating. Kyle Pitts was dominating. But just nothing. Like, he couldn't. His average per run is deceiving because he had 12 carries, 60 yards, which is an average of 5. But he broke loose on like a 30-yard run late in the game. So don't let that fool you. Like, he wasn't grinding him out on the yards either. Like, I don't know what it is. He's just getting bottled up. I know he had a shoulder injury going into the game, but that doesn't explain the previous 4 games he's had either.
Yeah, I think at a certain point, and this is kind of what I was saying about Garrett Wilson last week on the Starts of the Week episode. Obviously, Garrett Wilson came through, had a great week, but at a certain point, yeah. At a certain point, though, if you are that guy, there's signs, right? If you are that guy, you dominate at some point. And for it to be 5 weeks where, and it's not like Bijan's been terrible. He's just been fine. He's been okay.
Yeah, but
and that's not
he's
what you
the
want.
RB 20. You don't draft
Right.
Bijan to be the RB 20. The RB 20 doesn't win you your league. It doesn't hurt you, but the RB 20 doesn't win you a league.
He's not scoring touchdowns. I think he has 1 touchdown through 5 weeks.
1 receiving touchdown against Kansas City.
That's crazy to me.
And Tyler
I wonder
Algier's
how
not
many
doing
rush-
anything. It's the rushing offense as a whole not been amazing.
Yeah, it's not been good. Not been good at all. We're going topic by topic here. So instead of going game by game, we've got little things to jump into. But speaking of rushing offenses not really being all that good, the
2
Jets
running backs.
and Breece Hall.
It sucks right now because I know you don't want to talk about Breece Hall. I don't really want to talk about Breece Hall. I like Breece Hall, and I like Bijan Robinson. And the fact that we're in Week 5 having to have this kind of conversation about both of these running backs is very frustrating.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. And I'm not panicking. So when I say I don't know what to do with Breece Hall or Bijan,
I'm not panicking about either one of them. Like, either one of these guys could turn their season around next week, and I would not be shocked.
Exactly. Yeah. What I'm not saying when I say I don't know what to do with them, I'm not saying, oh, I'm panicking. I'm selling them for pennies on the dollar.
I'm going to bench Breece Hall. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Right. Like, nothing really changes in your lineup, but it is sort of a trend. And with Breece, at least, we did have the first 2 weeks of the season. He was, top 7, 8 running back finishes. So we've seen him be really good. And he is getting a proportion of the running back rush share that is perfectly fine. He's getting an adequate percentage of the work in the backfield. But the problem is the last 2 weeks, the offense has been terrible, or they, at least in Sunday's case, just didn't run the ball at all. And that's the thing that's weird, is they have a pretty good rush offense. You'd think on paper, like Braylon Allen is a really good backup running back that's been efficient. Breece Hall is an excellent runner, and yet they've been relatively inefficient the past couple weeks, and there's no volume the past 2 weeks, which is very, very weird.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense either, because look at the Jets, I guess, running back duo. How many other teams in the NFL how many other duos are better in the NFL? Maybe Gibbs and Montgomery is the only other one I could think of. Like, Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet is a good combo, but I would rather have Breece and Allen. I mean, I would say Bijan and Algier is up there because they're both elite talents, but at least the way they're playing right now, I would give the nod to Breece and Allen. I mean, right now they're probably the second best duo, but they're not giving them the ball.
Yeah. And I guess it's weird, too. Now, Minnesota is a good defense. They have been great this year. But the Jets threw the ball 54 times, and for much of the game on Sunday, Aaron Rodgers didn't really look good, and he threw 3 interceptions.
Minnesota did exactly what Minnesota wanted, because Minnesota thrives on those third and longs with their pass rush, and they did it every time. Like, it was 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8 every drive.
Yeah. When you get to
go like
a point
short
like
pass
this,
short pass to Garrett Wilson, incompletion, and now you're screwed.
When it looks like this, where I don't know about you, but I just feel like the offense is so not creative at this point in the season. It just feels like they're running super predictable stuff. And that, to me, is an indictment on the play caller. Like,
well, it's got to
you
be
have talented players.
I mean, the play caller, but Rodgers too. Like, this is the same offense Rodgers has run for years. He's got to change something.
Yeah, I mean, he's not as good as he has been in the past. He's not the MVP Aaron Rodgers of the past. But honestly, more than that, just like getting creative with your run schemes. I mean, I feel like they're just lining it up and just trying to shove it down the other team's throat. And, I mean, there's just nothing. And they don't have an offensive line that can just lean on people like that. I mean, it's a fine offensive line, but it's not amazing.
I don't know. It's kind of the same with Bijan. Like, I don't have an explanation as to why they're not. Everything is lined up to where these guys should be producing, and they're not. Be it the offense, be it them themselves. I don't have an explanation.
It's very weird. Very, very weird. Let's go over here to the Bengals-Ravens game, because this was, this maybe was the game of the weekend. Joe Burrow goes nuts in a loss. Jamar Chase has dang near 200 yards.
T. Higgins.
I know you have takes, and we can talk about Mark Andrews here because there's weird stuff there too. But just for the Bengals, I mean, this was everything you ever dreamed of, and they lost because their defense is terrible.
As a fantasy player, I love this. I love it. Because this is the same reason just a couple weeks ago we were saying, oh yeah, Jaden Daniels, I don't know if he's good. Obviously he's proven he's going to be awesome. But they're like, he's going to have to score because the Washington defense is so bad. Now, Washington is like really turning their season around, and they look dang good. But if the Bengals defense is this bad, I don't know where you are, but like and I'm always a little biased towards the Bengals because I just like them for whatever reason. But I'm borderline putting Joe Burrow as a top 5 quarterback, maybe locking him in as a top 5 because he's going to have to. If their defense is bottom of the league in basically every category, tackling, secondary, pass rush, like nothing is going well, their season is quickly slipping away. and Zach Moss is hurt, and their running game's not been dominant anyway. Joe Burrow's going to have to put on that Superman cape, and he's going to have to throw the football all over the field every single game. T. Higgins is healthy, looks like it. Jamar Chase, and I'll say this about Jamar Chase, I got him as my wide receiver 1 rest of the season for this very same reason. Is they are going to have to put up points, and they're going to have to do it in bunches. So, awesome. It's awesome for fantasy. It sucks for Bengals fans, but it is awesome for fantasy.
Yeah, this is the recipe, right? It's a bad defense and an electric offense and desperation. That's the other part of it, too.
Their ball,
they have to have it.
Yeah.
Yes. This is sort of the recipe, was it 2 years ago now, when they were pretty much backs against the wall and they had to win like every game. It was a win and in situation for like 7 straight weeks, and they ended up going to the Super Bowl.
And Joe Burrow thrives in those situations. I don't know why. He's just clutch. He does. If he's got to have it, the boy is going to deliver.
He does have it. But the problem is this year, unlike a couple years ago, they have an objectively horrific defense. Here are their PFF ranks for tackling, coverage, and pass rush. They are
32nd,
fourth
32nd,
worst.
32nd.
It's not good. Fourth worst, according to PFF, in tackling grade. They are second worst in pass rush. And in coverage grade, they are 8th worst.
God, that's bad. And they just lost the starting corner, I believe, too.
Yeah.
Which that might be a good thing. Who knows? Like, get this guy off the field. Give me somebody who can cover anybody.
It could. They are depleted and bad.
But I don't know where if you agree with me with my fantasy takes, but man, I think they're going to be great for fantasy because they have to be for real life.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. I'm kind of neutral on it. I don't know if I am like all the way in. I mean, I still think Jamar Chase, I've been in on him the entire season. He was my RB or my wide receiver 1 preseason. So I was in on the offense from the get-go.
I think he's definitely wide receiver 1 rest of the season if they're going to have to be like this.
See, I don't know. It's still kind of that cluster at the top where, I mean, any given week there's like 4 or 5 dudes that could be your wide receiver 1 rest of season. So I don't think it's clear and obvious, but he's certainly in the cluster of those guys that can do it. And Joe Burrow is, I mean, if they're going to keep having to score points to beat anybody, then yeah, I mean, he is exactly what you want when you're needing a guy to go score 30.
Him or AR rest of season?
Joe Burrow.
Him or Kyler rest of season?
It's close, but probably Joe Burrow.
So yeah, that's going to put him around QB5.
Yeah, probably. Would you take him or Jalen Hurts rest of season?
Oh, baby. Right now, Jalen doesn't look good, man.
What about C.J. Stroud? Because we're at like 5 or 6.
Honestly, I think I'd prefer Burrow over Stroud. Because Stroud's team is better. Stroud's team is better, and I like Burrow's weapons better. Which
Fair enough.
Sounds opposite of the way it should be. Like, Stroud's team is better, which means he should be better. Like, well, for real life, yes, but for fantasy, no.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. Another thing we noticed Sunday was that right as soon as we say that we're not concerned about Travis Etienne, he looks like he might have actually lost his job to Tank Bigsby.
My man was losing it. Did he get hurt? Like, I was trying to find that out. Like, you mentioned he was hurt. I never saw any report of him being hurt during the game.
So I looked at the splits in the snaps, and I think what's happening is they are just riding a hot hand at running back. I think Etienne had – no, it's not. I think Etienne had 20 or like 22 of the first 30 running back snaps, and then after Tank Bigsby had was it his first touchdown or something? He had like 11 of the final 13.
Let's see. ETN logged 22 of a possible 58 snaps. Did get 6 pass catches, which saved his day. Bigsby had 23 snaps. Ran 13 times. They said he got popped pretty good on his shoulder, they said. I know
that was the same thing he was dealing with last week.
Yeah, he was questionable going into the game because of his shoulder. I don't know, maybe that's it, but I think it's time we stop making some excuses about Travis Etienne as well. And Etienne or Bigsby looked dang good. I'm not panicking on Etienne, but he's much higher on my worry list than Bijan and Brees are. Like, he's actually like the water's getting real warm right now, borderline hot.
I don't know if this is a trend, but let's see here. For Tank Bigsby, in the games that he has gotten more than 5 attempts, he has rushed for at least 73 yards.
I can't remember the last time ETN got 70 yards rushing.
Well, let's see. I can go find it for us because it's probably been a hot minute. It
has not happened this year.
It has not happened this year. It was, if Sleeper will cooperate with me.
Okay, I've got it.
The last time he had 70 yards was week 17 of last season, so it wasn't that long ago.
But look at the rest of the season too. He had 102 yards, week 17. Then his next time over 70 yards was week 8, week 5, week 1, and week 3 of last year. So he's had 1,
it
2,
has not happened
3,
much.
4. He had 5 last season and none this season.
Hasn't happened much. And this season in half PPR scoring, he's not gone over 14 half PPR points, whereas Tank Bigsby has done that multiple times already. Again, we talk about it with running backs, like the guy who spells the starter always looks really efficient in spurts. But Tank Bigsby sort of looks like the kind of guy that can actually handle workload if you give it to him. Like if Travis Etienne were to get injured at any point in the season, Tank Bigsby is...
Of course he can.
He's a tank. He'd be just fine. He's sort of like Zach Charbonnet. You lock him in, it's like, I don't know if he's top 5, but that is the conversation that you're having.
When I was
with
watching the
Bigsby.
dude at Auburn, like I actually thought he was one of the better running backs in the 2023 class. Obviously, it didn't end up panning that, but like I was watching his college film. This dude's good. He's not incredibly fast. He's just good.
And he pulls away from people in the open field, which is, I mean, he didn't look super fast, but I mean, he's just very good.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So I guess rest of season, I am having the dilemma in Mully, in the Granddaddy of them all, that I'm seriously considering, if I have a better option, if I can work myself out of it, figuring out a way to get Travis Etienne out of my lineup, because he's not terrible, but he is not helping at all.
All right,
he is not part of the solution.
Sounds very gross, and it will change once Jonathan Brooks comes back. But you just got Chuba Hubbard in
it's Chuba Hubbard.
Is it Chuba Hubbard or Travis Etienne?
Yes, it's Chuba Hubbard, and that is disgusting. But the answer is Chuba Hubbard.
It's bad that we have to have this conversation, but it is a conversation with an ugly
Hubbard,
outcome.
well, at least with the Panthers, like there's lots of things the Panthers don't do well. They are a actually good run blocking offensive line.
Yeah, they're not bad.
They have, and Chuba Hubbard is legit talented. I think their grade on PFF is 15th in the league. I kind of disagree with that grade.
Better than you would have thought, honestly, going into the season.
It is, yeah. They're not a great pass blocking line, but I think they're a really solid run blocking line. Well, even their pass blocking grade, it's pretty good. Let's see here. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but according to PFF, they have the 7th best pass blocking line. So apparently they've got a good offensive line. The Jaguars, on the flip side, do not have a good offensive line. It is, let's see if I can pull up their run block grade. Where's the Jags? Oh goodness. Well, it's actually apparently very good. I take that back. According to PFF, they have the sixth best run blocking offensive line so far this year. That one I don't believe.
It's interesting
because they for like 2 years running they had basically the worst run blocking offensive line in the NFL. I don't believe it's drastically that much better this year. I think Tank Bigsby is just hitting big runs. But anyways, all of that to say, I have severe concerns about Travis Etienne, and apparently Chuba Hubbard is a better start right now than Travis Etienne is.
sad but true.
Our last couple things here before we talk about the Dynasty squads. Daniel Jones actually looks very, very good. And I really thought
Without Malik
that, right, like rain or shine, he shows up and he's been very, very solid. Dare I say competent on an NFL field. I don't know what to make of this.
He just
because
tore
it is
your
not,
Seahawks apart.
Oh, he ripped them a new one, man.
I don't have a reason behind it. I mean, Brian Dable, we know, is a good offensive coach. I mean, he's the one who put Josh Allen on the map. I mean, I was high on Daniel Jones when they hired Dable. I'm like, he put Allen on the map. He can fix Daniel Jones. Maybe it just took longer than we thought. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, he's not doing the dumb stuff. Like week 1, he looked terrible, right? And in the preseason, he was making dumb mistakes. But then after week 1, every game since, he hadn't really put the ball in harm's way. I mean, a couple times, but it's not turning into turnovers. And they are targeting their best players. Like they're putting their best players in situations where they can succeed. Be that Malik Neighbors or Darius Slayton on Sunday. Wan'Dale Robinson is getting heavily targeted as well. It's weird because they look very, very good.
They put Malik Neighbors in Darius Slayton's jersey. You can't convince me they didn't.
Slayton looked so good. What do you have, 120 yards on Sunday?
Yeah, like 12 targets and 8 catches. That was Malik Neighbors. They put him in like, no, you're getting in there. Just go in put his jersey on.
Oh man, no, it's crazy, and it's something to monitor moving forward because a lot of the reservations about that entire offense were Daniel Jones related issues, and he's not the problem at all.
No.
And there's not any problems. They're very solid.
Now, your Seahawks got some questions to answer, but
yeah, no, that's a whole separate conversation. I don't know what the problem is there, but
I think the problem is they're not giving the ball to JSN enough. JSN needs 25 targets a game.
This is the thing that I think
25
is frustrating about Seattle is they have weeks where, like with the Lions game, like obviously they didn't win that game, but the offense looked electric. But then they also have games where for no explainable reason, they just are not that good on offense.
Is that a Geno Smith
and
problem?
That's maybe. I don't know, but maybe. It's one of those things where like he's not making big mistakes, but he's not really causing you to have good things happen either. It's sort of this weird in between where like you get a couple first downs, but then you punt, and you get a couple first downs, then you punt, and you look up and he hadn't really done anything, but it's not like they've been objectively terrible either. They're just sort of somewhere in the middle sometimes where it's not good, but it's not awful either.
They feel kind of like a team that doesn't know what their identity is. They've got a lot of weapons. They've got a lot of good weapons. Similar, like honestly, with the amount of weapons they have, the only team I could compare them to would be San Francisco or Detroit. But unlike those two teams, like Detroit and San Francisco, I guess have an understanding of how the targets and where the ball goes in the offense. Whereas Seattle doesn't really know that. Like either like some games, they give it to Kenneth Walker a lot, and he does okay, but they don't throw it to the other guys. In other games, it's like you've got 3 good receivers in JSN, DK, and Lockett, but they don't really know how the targets shake out between those 3 guys. So they don't know what their identity is.
And this has been kind of an issue for multiple years running, where you've got a lot of good players to get the ball to, and there's not always a consistency with who ends up touching the ball. Like, for the first few weeks of the season, DK Metcalf was dominating. I mean, he's killing people. And then Sunday, that recipe just sort of goes out the window, and it's more of a Tyler Lockett game. And JSN doesn't even look like he got off the bus until the fourth quarter. And it's just weird. And not only that, they didn't run the ball very well either on Sunday. It's just odd. They do these dumb things, and their offensive line got absolutely cooked by the Giants' defensive front. So there's that too. Like, they just got molested out there, and that's never fun. But
yeah, they've got to figure out how to pivot too, because like look at the Lions, for example. Like, the Lions know exactly what their identity is, and it runs through, Amon-Ra, Gibbs, and Monty. But when you take that away, they know how to adjust and where to put the ball, where to go with the ball when they take Amon-Ra out of the game. Versus Seattle doesn't really know how to do that. Like, when they take DK out of the game, they're like, okay, where does the ball go now? And then it takes them too long to adjust to whatever the next step is.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And it also doesn't help that Brock Purdy and Jared Goff, I think, are significantly better quarterbacks than Geno Smith.
No,
like, Geno's
that plays a role into it.
Yeah, like, Geno's not terrible, but he's not amazing either. You can certainly win with him, but you're not going to win much of anything important at the end of the year. I think with Jared Goff and Brock Purdy, you can certainly make runs in the playoffs. Geno, you definitely cannot.
Yeah.
I have something about the Cowboys backfield. I just don't care about Rico Dowdle, so we can just skip that one. Let's talk about the Dynasty teams.
It's fine. I like my Dynasty teams. Like them a lot.
You made a pivot in the Granddaddy of them all. The first pivot that you have made maybe ever.
And I don't know if it's the right move or not. I still don't know. But that team has been contending for the better half of a decade.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know. The rest of the league just kind of seems like they've closed the gap. Like, the team it's been contending for better half of a decade, but it's been like arguably the best team for probably 3 seasons, would you say?
Yeah.
At least
3 it's been in that.
Like,
it's either been first or second for like probably the last 4 years.
Yeah. And it's
anyway.
It was a weird situation where it still could be. It still very well could be, but the rest of the league had narrowed the gap. I've just been unlucky. Fell to 1-3 to start the season. The team's actually low-key kind of hit its stride the past 2 weeks. But something it didn't sit right with me with how the team has looked in the past few weeks and how the rest of the league has looked, plus the long-term outlook of a couple guys on the team, like a Josh Jacobs and, some guys like that. So I made a small pivot. The team is not full-blown rebuild because there's guys on this squad that aren't leaving. And I kind of felt like it was a decent window to do it too, because I can get something decent for the guys that are a little rocky right now. Plus, the guys I'm building on are still very young to the point where I can take a year to reload, and I still have a 4-5 year runway with these guys. So that was kind of where I was at with it. Like, I sold Josh Jacobs, sold Jordan Mason, surprisingly sold Jaden Daniels. Wasn't planning to do that, but the offers came around.
What'd you end up getting back for Jaden Daniels?
It was actually a crazy 3-way trade. I traded Jaden Daniels, T. Higgins, and a second. This is a 1 quarterback league. and I got back Kyler Murray, Brandon Ayuk, and my own first-round pick, which is what I wanted to get from the start because, like, I kind of want to take a year off and reload, but I can't do any of that until I get my own first-round pick because, like, I don't want to make this pick the 102 and, like, make it obvious to the other guy who has it. And he's like, yeah, you're not getting that back. So
Right.
I had to get that first, and then but I feel like that's pretty good. And obviously T popped off, and you know I've liked T for a while. But to get my own first and down tier to Kyler, T and Ayuk, that's kind of lateral to me. Some people probably prefer Ayuk. I think they're really close. So I think it was worth it to go get my own pick and have that security.
See, I guess the thing where, because you could really make a good argument for making a couple moves and competing, or
But the
doing
problem
a
was
rebuild.
I'd gotten rid of all of my draft capital. Like, I didn't really have any ammunition to go get somebody if I needed it. The team was just stuck where it is. It wouldn't get any
Right.
better, or I could trade some guys.
And the other thing with the granddaddy of them all is that nobody ever rebuilds. So there's
No.
always the opportunity to be the one guy rebuilding.
Landon did it last offseason and did it very well. And I kind of wanted to try it myself.
Yeah, and two, there's just the other part where it's like, hey, I just want to try and rebuild and see what it's like. Because for 6-7 years in a row, you've been competing and going for a championship and getting close, but just no cigar yet.
Yeah, no.
So it's like, hey,
God, no championships in that league. It makes me so mad. I have nothing to show for 5 years of dominance.
yeah. I feel you to a certain degree because I was right there in the championship last year, and I lost by 0.7 of a point on an Aaron Jones 5-yard run.
That sucks.
It's freaking brutal, but, you know, it's the way it goes, I guess.
That sucks. That sucks, the big one.
Yeah, that was so
But
bad.
we'll see.
Ugh.
I hope this turns out because now the team's starting to hit its stride, and I'm like, okay, now what? I just traded for my own first-round pick, traded Josh Jacobs, traded Jordan Mason and Chuba Hubbard, which I guess that one probably makes sense. But like, okay, now the team's top 2. That's the 107 as it sits right now.
Right. Yeah, so I made the Jordan Mason Chuba Hubbard trade, and I was also in a very similar situation where it's a competing team, but I've started 1-3. But the story of my season is a little bit different than yours in that basically everybody on my week 1 starting lineup is injured.
Yeah, and that was another
Then-
thing I wanted to point out real quick is your team honestly scared me a lot too because I'm looking at the rosters, and my team really is one of the better ones in the league. But I was like measuring it up against the very top ones. I'm like, I don't know if I have a clear advantage over Hayden. I don't have a clear advantage over Vinny. And I definitely don't have a clear advantage over you once you're healthy.
And that's the thing I'm banking on is, well, when I started 1-3, it's like when you're 1-1, it's like, okay, it's fine. 1-2, okay, it's fine. 1-3, it's like, okay.
Now we're at the quarter point.
This is, yeah. Now I'm like, okay, I can't keep losing while I have Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nacua, AJ Brown, Cooper Kupp, Mark Andrews has disappeared.
Devastating amount of injuries.
Just a ridiculous amount of injuries. Like, I looked at my week 1 starting lineup, and I had, let's see here. I mean, I started Lamar, so I still have him. That's great. But I started Mark Andrews. I started A.J. Brown. I started Puka Nacua. And I had Christian McCaffrey in the lineup, but I was able to auto-sub him for David Montgomery. But, like, 4 of the guys that I had in my week 1 lineup are just not there, and I've had to tread water without them. And so, like, I don't really know what this team is. I feel like it's a good team. I feel like I can compete once they're back, but, like, I just have to make the playoffs at this point. So I fired off the first-round pick and got Jordan Mason and Chuba Hubbard from you to at least hopefully just, like, stabilize things until guys come back from injury, and then hopefully we can make the playoffs and make a run.
Yeah. Side note, I sent this trade to a different buddy we have named Landon. Not Landon Davis from the Dynasty show, but a different one. And I'm in another league with him. where I also traded Jordan Mason for a first. So he's like, you had Jordan Mason in 2 Dynasty leagues? I said, yes. And you traded him for a first in both leagues? I said, yes. He's like, man, you are a wizard.
That's the way to do it. Sometimes,
that's how
it's
you
just
do it.
better to be lucky than good. Like, I'm sure so many people had Jordan Mason. Yeah, I'm sure so many people had Jordan Mason and couldn't trade him. But, like, the stars just aligned where it happened to be a situation where I feel my first is going to be late. And it was, give me Jordan Mason plus something else that I can use in the lineup. And I need points. Mm-hmm. That's the other part of it, too, is a week ago, I would not have sent my first for Jordan Mason. But now it's like, okay, I got to start winning some of these matchups. Otherwise, I'm going to miss the playoffs. And it's going to be the most depressing thing to have a team this good that doesn't make the playoffs.
And this is what, like, Landon and I say. We've been harping on it over and over in the Dynasty League. Like, get these handcuff running backs because you will get something valuable for them down the line. And people, like, say it all the time, like, that would never happen in my league. I'm like, okay, it's happened for me twice in 2 different leagues. So, like, it can happen. It can happen.
It's frustrating, too, because that's the one handcuff I don't have. I've got Tank Bigsby. I've got Dave Montgomery, if you want to call him that. Back. I've got them all handcuffed, except yeah, he does. He's not a handcuff, but if Jahmyr Gibbs gets injured, Dave Montgomery to the moon.
He's top 5.
Yeah, he's great. But of course, the one guy I didn't have was Jordan Mason. But anyways,
I gave him to
and now I have it, so we're good.
You're welcome.
How you feeling about your 200 plus point performance in Ordinary Gentlemen?
Oh man. Put up a top 10 all-time high score in that league. I think 4 years now of that league, and put up a top 10. No, higher than that. It was like a top 7 all-time performance. I can pull up the all-time, pull the league history record, but that team always has been just a beast. That was the 5th highest performance in league history I just had. 205 points.
She whiz.
I love it. And I am heavily invested on the Bengals in that league. So with the Bengals' rest of season outlook, I'm not going to lie, I'm feeling a little confident about that league. In the granddaddy of them all, I have had just the worst luck in that league. Like, everything goes wrong for me come playoff time. Everything just... I can't catch a break in that league. But this league... The team is, do not get me wrong, it is a very good team. It is, every season, one of the top 2 to 3 teams in the league. But somehow or another, 2 out of 3 seasons, like, the stars have just aligned in the playoffs. And it's the only league it's the only league I'm ever lucky. The only one.
Yeah, you have faced me, and 2 out of the last 3 seasons you've won the championship, and it's because you beat me in the semifinals because the Eagles running back had an amazing fantasy week. Now I finally have Saquon Barkley, and I'm hoping I can hex off that curse and just, if we meet, I've got the Eagles running back. I'll be okay.
Yeah, they can't hurt you if you've got him.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is Saquon's going to get hurt, and I'm going to pick up the backup.
Hey, Will Shipley, let's see here. I might have Will Shipley just to cover all my bases on the Eagles running backs.
I think, do I still have him? No, I don't have him anymore. I kept Miles Sanders on the team for the longest time just because of his playoff performance 3 years ago when I beat you in the playoffs. DeAndre Swift's still on the team. He did it to you last year.
Yep, Miles Sanders and DeAndre Swift are my sworn enemies. I hate them with a fiery, burning passion.
It made me so happy, too, because, like, I guess you weren't anti-DeAndre Swift, but I was always so much higher on him than you were. And you always, like, were trying to talk me off a ledge. And it just made me feel good that he's the reason you don't have back-to-back championships.
And I should. That's the annoying thing is I should. But that's the thing with this league. It kind of runs pretty chalk in terms of preseason, here's the good teams. And for the most part, the teams that are top 3 preseason end up being top 3 at the end of the season. And I don't know why that is. Because
there is always
in the
this
granddaddy
one
of them
team,
all,
though.
There's always one team that that jumps in and makes it interesting. But for the
You know
most
who
part,
I'm talking about.
yeah, yes. Playing the school of the blind and deaf every single week and skating through.
He is. We looked at the league history, and the dude has like the lowest points against all time, like standings by like 400 or 500 points. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's every single year he's got the lowest points against, and you can't predict it. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And he's made the championship back-to-back years, and like his roster is always at best maybe like 5th or 6th.
Yeah. No, he gets the championship, and everybody is looking at it like, yeah, he has zero chance.
And he has gotten trounced both years in the championship.
Yes. It's a 2-week championship, and he's losing by like 60, 70 points 2 years in a row.
God, gets murdered.
I mean, he's getting beat so bad, you
But
start to think,
that's
like,
the
maybe
thing,
he'll
though,
do a
like,
rebuild.
It's sometimes luck, and it's like it takes skill to get into the fantasy championships. It's all luck from there. That is all the fantasy championships are.
Yes. So, yeah. I'm hoping that it can be my year again. It's sort of shaping up the way it was for me 2 years ago when I won that league. Because that year, just the whole regular season, the team was completely dominant. It was the most points in the league by like 200 or 300 points. It was a big
I've
gap.
caught you, though. I think right now, after my blow-up week, I think I'm ahead of you in points and leading the league.
You probably are ahead of me in points. We added a match against league median. And I don't know how much to wait, like how many times you get above the league median. And I don't know. I'm sure you have an opinion on it. But I feel like if you hit median every single week, like that is dominance. I mean, sometimes with your matchups, it can be like your opponent just hits a blow-up week. But I feel like if you are above the median every single week, that is a dominant team. And obviously you want the ceiling weeks, but if you are better than most of the league every single week, that is a championship level roster.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a safety argument too, because once you get in the playoffs, you're just like, can I have a really high floor? You don't want to obviously be the team that runs into a buzzsaw, but it's like, hey, can I get what 75% of the rest of the league cannot hit every single week and maintain that and be steady? And you just fingers crossed once you get in the playoffs.
Yeah. And I was actually going to mention that just a little bit about my team in that league, because last season I had a ton of injuries in that league. Ton of injuries. I lost Justin Herbert. I lost Joe Burrow. I lost Jonathan Taylor. I lost Cooper Kupp. Like I got peppered with injuries. Now, the team was also really deep and won. But I never really had – I had a couple blow-up leagues that year. But I never dropped below, I don't think, 120 points. I never went really over 150, maybe like once or twice, but I also never dropped below 120. So like the floor was just like there. You knew if you were going up against me, I've got to hit 120 minimum to win the week.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is where I feel pretty good about the team in log right now, but it was 155 week 1, 153 week 2, 154 week 3. So it's basically the same thing 3 weeks in a row. Last week was 130, and this week the projection, and I have Mahomes, Kelsey, and Olave to play tonight, so who knows? But the projection is 135.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're saying. Like, you just want to be the team that hits the high floor every single week. A bad week is still better than most, and you just cross your fingers and let the chips fall where they may.
And I'm on that same trajectory too. Like, I'm at 123, 124, 169, 123, and now 200. Like, this team is locked in for the past 2 years now. Like, I'm hitting 120, and now you just have to be afraid, is Joe Burrow going to throw 3 touchdowns with Jamar Chase? Because if that happens, I'm hitting 200.
Yeah. The team that I was terrified of coming into the year was Landon Hubel's team. He's throttled me this week.
He's so good.
He hit a ceiling week this week and just sucker punched me. But this man has Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. This is super flex. He's got CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk. The running backs are terrible. There's nothing much to speak of at running back. What is it? Tony Pollard, J.K. Dobbins. He's got Najee Harris. I don't even like. It's gross.
He
started Tucker Kraft.
It's serviceable. Dude, Tucker Kraft was a great start this week. He's the reason
Yes.
he's going to beat you.
Yes. It's so frustrating when you have just a rando you drop in.
Well, his
and
other tight
it's not
end
like Tucker Kraft's
is
bad,
Mark
but-
Andrews, so like he can't. Mark Andrews ain't startable.
No, he can't. But he has just an unreal knockout punch any given week. If you go up against him and he hits a ceiling week, you just can't beat his ceiling weeks for whatever reason.
No. And
The problem is
the past
he's not
2 years
hitting ceiling weeks.
Last year he had the best team. By
Yes, for sure.
far. And 2 years ago he had the best team. Like he's consistently been either the best or second best team in the league.
Yes. He has, and I was putting together some power rankings to go out tomorrow. He has led the league in scoring 2 out of the 3 completed seasons that we have done, and he's got 0 championships.
He is like me and the granddaddy of them all. The team is the best, but just can't get to that championship. He's made
just
it
can't
to the
get it done.
championship one season, and he unfortunately played me. It's a 2-week championship, and he played me the week that Joe Burrow played the Ravens and Chiefs back-to-back. And Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, I believe, combined for almost 200 points by themselves. Maybe more than that.
It was ridiculous.
So when three players over 2 weeks just get 200, on top of whatever the rest of the team gets, I feel so bad for what happened to him.
And he had the better team. That's the sucky part is on paper it was like, yeah, he's probably going to win. And then the Bengals
And he didn't
come
have
in
a bad
there.
week either. Like he
No.
averaged like 150 over that 2-week stretch. The problem was I averaged 200.
Yeah. I think you ended up scoring. I was looking at the league history today. You scored like 370 points in 2 weeks. And he did a very respectable like 290.
He had like 300.
Yeah. And it was too little too late. It didn't matter. He could have done anything. And
And
it
any
didn't
other
matter.
team he had played that year, he would have won.
Yeah.
And that the same thing happened last season too. He had one bad week in the playoffs, and then during championship week, he outscored everybody by like 100 points.
Yeah, I played him
But
in the
that
third
one-
place game and killed
he
me.
He beat you so bad. But that
He
one
made me so bad.
that 1 week, man.
But all that to say, I mean, he just throttled me, and he's going to hit the median. But he is now factoring in this week. He's 5-5 with the median matchups so far this year. He's about to be like the last playoff spot, and he's got a team that's excellent. But he just, for whatever reason, has not been. I mean, he'll be fine. He'll be fine.
He's
grand
very
scheme of
unlucky.
things, but
He has been very unlucky in this league.
this man cannot have either a number 1 seed in the playoffs or a good showing in the playoffs. Like, he can have a good regular season and then sucks in the playoffs, or he can have a bad regular season. I mean, he had 1 year he didn't even make the playoffs, and I think he was top 3 in points for. He just didn't even. It was ridiculous. I think we added the league
His
median
best
just to help
season
him
was
out.
the first season. Actually, his best season was last year when he literally outscored everybody else by almost 200 points. But he was like 12-1 our very first
Yes.
season in this league. Like he was unstoppable.
It was ridiculous. But that was the year you had the Bengals
His
connection.
one regular season loss was to me too. So I always like get to lord that over him. Like, remember that league you lost? You won every single game except the 3 times you played me.
Yeah. The funny thing about tonight, so I have Mahomes and Kelsey playing tonight and Olave. I am down by 72 points. So it's very much a long shot. Probably not going to happen.
Not the way Mahomes is playing.
2 years ago, this was the exact scenario. I was down 65 points, and I had Mahomes and Kelsey, and I won against Landon Hewell. I don't want to jinx it or speak it
Please
into existence.
don't,
Well, I do
man.
want to speak it. I would love for it to happen again.
With the league
But I'm just saying.
median, you're 8-0 right now. This man needs a win You can't do that to him. You cannot do this to him.
I would love
Landon
it.
might legitimately cry if you do this. Please don't.
It's probably not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. But if it does, I will be laughing.
I
Oh,
can
my
see,
goodness.
I can see Kelsey having a good game. Olave might have a good game. Mahomes is struggling, dude.
Yeah, he's not been good.
To
if
the
Mahomes
point
can just give
where
us
our buddy
one
Landon
vintage
Davis
game
for the Dynasty show, he's been shopping him in leagues. And that's his favorite player. And he's moving him.
I shopped him in log. I was like,
did you?
And I did.
I'm not buying him. It's not worth it. Like, my team's contending. It's literally not worth it to buy Mahomes. That feels crazy to say, but it's true.
Yeah. There's only a couple of people that I would even consider trading him for, even still, with as bad as he has been. But I definitely was poking around just to see how people felt about him. I did have Landon Davis tell me that if the scenario came about where he was not going to compete in that league, he was going to come hard after Mahomes. I was like, well, doesn't do me a whole lot of good because he's like third in the league right now, so he's definitely competing.
You're one of the top teams.
Yeah, he's doing just
He's got
fine.
a heck of a QB combo, too.
My goodness. Jaden Daniels, C.J. Stroud, Lord of mercy.
That feels pretty good.
That is nice. I just need Anthony Richardson to, not be terrible. I would love
Can
just
you
a
at least
home
be
run.
an average quarterback? Because if
Yeah,
you're an
can
average
you just-
quarterback, it'd be great for fantasy.
Oh, my gosh. Just don't be the dumbest player on the field, and we'll be just fine. You have upside. You can score touchdowns. Just don't do the dumb stuff.
He's got a road to go.
He's got a while to go. I have benched him probably indefinitely for Brock Purdy, and that feels real gross.
That does not feel good at all.
Doesn't feel good, but
this is not something you were
the right
expecting to
choice.
say heading into this season. If I told you 5 weeks in you're going to be starting Brock Purdy every week over AR, you would have laughed me off the podcast.
No chance. And I got so lucky because they were playing the Jags this week, and Joe Flacco had an excellent game. And we all knew this. Like, the Jags defense is not very good.
Joe Flacco.
This
is 2 years in a row that he has come off the couch and been better than the incumbent starter for the team.
I know it. It's disrespectful. This 39-year-old man coming in. It's not nice.
Elite level athlete, high draft capital in AR, like all the talent in the world, and Joe Flacco comes in. Sit down, watch this.
Yeah. And it saved me, too, because I would have started AR this week if he were healthy. If he played on Sunday against that defense, I could not have rationalized not playing him because it's like, I know he's going to do the dumbest thing you've seen all week, but he's also probably going to have like 13 completions and 270 yards, and he might have a couple rushing touchdowns.
Or he'll have 3 completions and throw the ball into quadruple coverage 5 times.
That's any given week, it could certainly happen. I don't know why he is so dumb. His decision-making is just ridiculous.
I thought he was out last year for a shoulder injury. Apparently, they hit some nerve that goes to his brain.
I think he's at, 3 touchdowns and 6 picks so far this season?
That's not a good stat, Anthony.
No, not good at all. That's not what you want to see at all.
He was one of your champions heading into this year. I'm sorry.
He was.
Your champions have not panned out. Anthony Richardson,
No.
Christian Kirk is not doing well.
No. Brian Thomas deleted Christian Kirk from the offense, which is great because I happen to have Brian Thomas in log. That's the other thing is I got these rookies. I got Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, and Brian Thomas, which is like, yippee.
Trade you made. That's a stupid trade you made. That
has
trade still
aged
pisses
like
me off.
the finest wine.
It
that
aged well
at the
when
time,
you made it.
It was a good trade at the time. It was, I've won this trade. But then it got even better because they started playing football, and it's like, oh, my goodness. every single one of these players, like
makes me
none of
so
them are
mad.
bad. They're all great. I was like, it's going to be my luck that two of these guys, of these three, are going to not end up living up to the hype, and all three of them have exceeded the hype, which is just, you got to be lucky sometimes.
I was trying to get that pick, and then I saw that trade go through, and I'm not going to lie, I said some things I shouldn't have.
Apparently what it took was Devontae Adams and Jalen Waddle.
And you got the 103, 110, and another pick.
Yeah, I think it was the 203 was Brian Thomas, the 110 was Bowers, and the 103 was Neighbors.
Makes me so mad. That makes me so mad.
I just felt great because it was the team's future, and it's weeks like this where this week AJ Brown is out with an injury. Let's see here. Saquon Barkley's out on a bye. Who else is out this week? Malik Neighbors was out with an injury. So you got three starters not playing. And Anthony Richardson was out with an injury too. I guess
people in
he's
the
a starter,
comments
but
are going to
whatever.
ask, is this a 4-team league? 4-man league?
No. Yeah. But to be able to plug in Brian Thomas, I didn't play Brock Bowers because I'm playing Kelsey, but Brock Bowers would have been amazing in a flex spot this week. I don't know. To have that flex security, that feels very good.
Makes me so mad.
You know what's going to happen. Saquon Barkley's going to get hurt, and the backup Eagles running back is going to somehow kill me in the playoffs. It's just,
I hope it's
written.
not even me that plays him against you. You're going into the week assuming you're going to win. You're playing the team we talked about, who's he's middle of the road, but he's just lucky, and he's going to snag the guy off waivers. You're projected to just destroy him, and then it goes off the rails, and the Eagles running back beats you again.
I would be so frustrated.
And then he goes up against me and puts up 60 points total.
Oh gosh. Because that's what has happened. You get
that's
through
what
me in the
happened last
semis,
year.
and it's tight. I mean, you beat me by 2 points, 1 point, whatever it is in the semis. It's a total nail biter, and then you get to the championship. It's like, oh, this isn't even a contest anymore. I mean, we're just gonna drink some daiquiris and call it a day.
I thought I was gonna I got through you, and I'm about to go up against Landon and get absolutely just raised, which is what would have happened if he had won. He would have
Yes.
annihilated me in the championship. But one bad week, and I got the worst team in the playoffs and killed him.
I almost want to go the route of the NBA playoffs and do a best of or just 2-week playoff rounds. But it's also the beauty of it is that you can get one-shotted. It's the beauty and the pain of best team does not always win.
The championship with the 2-week championship, it does feel like the best team, the best of those two teams over 2 weeks. And usually the best team will show itself basically and win. But yeah, there is a fear going in before that though. 3 weeks
those first round buys are so important.
3 weeks of one bad week can end it.
And honestly, I'm very excited that we have a media now because it's just more opportunities for you're going to have bad weeks. Everybody has bad weeks, but it's more opportunities for those good weeks to just stack on top of each other and distance yourself from those feisty teams that just
and
sort of
it helps you from being unlucky
in.
too. If you go out there and score 160, but your opponent scored 175, okay, well, I'm going to go 1-1 on the week instead of 0-1.
Right. And then the weeks that you stack good weeks on top of good weeks, you just go 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, and then you look up at the end of the year and you're like, oh, I'm 18-4 or something, or whatever the math ends up being for however many weeks you play.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Team's dominant.
Oh, we have. I think I just saw Monday games are starting, so I'm gonna go. I guess bite my nails and see if Mahomes and Kelsey can pull it out for me.
They're not going to do it.
No, probably not. It's wishful thinking, but a guy can dream, right?
We'll see.
We shall see. Anything else you want to hop into before we get out of here?
That's all I got.
That's all we got. That's all she wrote. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you on the Dynasty episode here in a couple days, right?
Peace.